Reverend Glenn Swain, our musical inspiration this morning, and coming up, our guest speaker, a man of many talents. Let me tell you about Reverend Glenn. He's an ordained CSL minister and founder of Heartfelt Farewells. It's a family-focused memorial service that honors the deceased loved one with comforting words, remembrances, and original music. Before starting Heartfelt Farewells, Reverend Glenn was a staff minister at the Scottsdale Center for Spiritual Living for 2 years. And previous to that, he was a member of New Vision Center for 16 years, was a practitioner there, was a group leader there, a teacher, and a board member. As I said, a giver and a man of many talents. So with our inspirational message this morning, please join me in welcoming back Reverend Glenn Swain.
Good morning, Creative Living Fellowship. This is Reverend Glenn Swain with you. And it's indeed my pleasure to be here with you this morning as we talk about a very important subject. It's really the new theme for June. I think Reverend Sherry has a theme for June as abundance. And that's a big old subject that we're going to take a look at least the beginning parts of it today. The name of my talk is The Foundation of Abundance. And of course, as we know, when we're going to build something, we really need a good, firm foundation for what we're building on. So today we're going to look at how we pour that foundation for abundance. We're going to be doing our work to see how we can smooth out the process. And then we're going to be able to step back and see our results for everything that we have manifested. All right, you ready to go with me? All right, here we go. As I said before, whenever we build a house or a building, there's always a foundation that's poured with cement usually. And you can usually see it because it's all boarded up with 2x4s and all layered out. And then they come and pour the concrete and let it set. So this is the like a house or a building. The foundation for abundance needs this place to rest upon, a very solid place to rest upon. Of course, we know that a weak footer would create a weak house, and a weak footer for our spiritual work may not allow us to manifest what we want to manifest. So the good news is that no matter what, we can actually raise, like we do a house or a building, we can actually raise, level it, and start over again whenever we like. We have the power of choice to do that. You know, I was again mentioning earlier that about a foundation. Usually, when concrete is poured into a foundation or any kind of concrete, it usually takes about 2 days for it to actually set up, and it kind of depends on the environment, also, of course, and some other particulars. But usually 2 to 3 days. But here's the interesting thing: the concrete reaches its strength at 25 or 20 to 28 days, 25 to 28 days. So this was a really reminder for me. I think it can be for you that you've heard the old expression, the old adage that do something for 30 days and your life can change, or a new habit can be started or stopped or whatever. And I equate this again to the setting, the curing of a footer that's being poured with concrete. Curing basically means to prepare, to preserve, or to finish off something. And in this case, we're talking about not necessarily concrete, but the spiritual process itself. Ernest Holmes always said that there has never been a cosmic famine. There's never been a cosmic famine. And what Ernest Holmes meant by this was that in the history of the world, the history of time itself, it has been mankind's limitations and thinking that have led to not the best things happening for us. So we do know that spirit is evergreen, it is verdant, and is always pregnant with possibilities. So our job is to replace or to place within the law that in which we want to accomplish or to manifest in our lives. And Ernest Holmes said that nature, let me see if I get this quote right, nature awaits its comprehension of her. Nature awaits our comprehension of her. So it's really us that we are looking to acknowledge the God, the Spirit, the divine within. Here's a quote by Ernest Holmes. The storehouse of nature may be filled with good, but this good is locked to the ignorant. Now, I'll repeat that again. The storehouse of nature may be filled with good, but this good is locked to the ignorant. And what Ernest Holmes is saying here, not ignorant as in not knowing, but it's really not using the law to our benefit. If the law is going to work the way it's going to work, and if we know more about it, we can have it and kind of manipulate it in our way. So we live in this absolute state of abundance at all times. From the textbook, Ernest Holmes wrote, "We are surrounded by universal subjectivity, always receiving the impress of our thought, and which has no alternative other than to operate directly upon it, thus creating the things in which we think." So it is our thoughts, of course. Our thoughts have power. And it's our continued thoughts, only whatever we want to manifest is what we see in the physical world itself. You know, the other day I was looking at an old Science of Mind magazine from May 1960, and I found this one reading that I want to read to you. It's more of a treatment statement is what it is. "I know that all the things I have and experience are but outer manifestations of my inner mental concepts, my own acceptance of divine ideas, and the inspiration to act with decision and conviction regarding my talents." Again, that's from the May 1960 Science of Mind magazine. So the foundation for abundance is when we go within. That's when we're pouring this foundation that is going to be strong to hold everything else upon it. It's also, I think, like your spirit is like the radio in your car. If you're going down the road and you want to change the channel to the channel that you want, you push a button and another radio station comes on, the one that you wanted. So, and it's, you know, you've heard of Sirius radio. I call it spirit radio. So it is our putting our desires and our what we want into the law and have a good spiritual background and foundation for that to manifest itself. Thought creates substance. Our thoughts create our world around us. It's not it doing it to us, it is us doing it to it. So it starts with this internal request. Again, this is what we want to manifest, what we want to see in the world. And it can be anything, a bigger bank account, better relationships, thicker wallet. It's always good. And so the success and abundance are not necessarily measured by money, of course. We can be abundant. We can be very successful and feel abundant with that. We can be in very loving relationships and feel very abundant that we're in these relationships that fill us with love and compassion and joy. And so that is a being wealthy and an abundance also. But it all begins with the abundance of spirit. And I suggest that we get our fill, okay? I want to tell you an interesting story. I was thinking this morning of this. This happened about 20 years ago. I was back home in Ohio visiting my parents then, and my mom and I went down to a produce market there in my hometown of Huntington, West Virginia. And we were looking at some of the produce, and she said, "Hey, would you like a peach cobbler tonight? I'll make a peach cobbler." Well, of course, I'm all over that. Let's do that. So I said, "Okay, well, good. Let's go out and pick up some peaches down the way here," because I just saw we just passed some. And so we come to the peaches, and they're just beautiful in the baskets and everything. So we're looking around them, squeezing a few of them. And so I pick 4 up with a vine on it. And so I pick it up, and My mom said, oh, no, no, no. Said, get ones without the vine on it. And it really hit me immediately what this was, because the peaches were, you paid for how much they weigh. And my mom had just trained herself to cut corners and wherever you can. So she saw the stem as putting weight on the peaches themselves, and then we'd have to pay more. Now, the stem was maybe an ounce, probably less than that. It'd been a couple pennies, I don't know. But it was a big moment for me that I really saw where the place where I came from, perhaps some of my upbringing and my thinking could be thinking in that lack, to be so tight as to don't buy a group of peaches with a vine on them, because they will add to the weight and you have to pay a few cents more. Anyway, I remember that story again. This has been a good 20 years ago. And I remember that was very, very big for me. In the moment, I really recognized for me what that was. And my mom was just doing what she has always done, God bless her. And nothing wrong there. But it was me thinking, wow, this is what I brought up with. And I can have that thinking too. So I want to change that, to get out of that limitation type of thinking that we are abundance, that as the peaches in front of me were abundant, we were all abundant at that same time. So that's a little personal story from me. I don't think I've ever told anybody, actually, any kind of talk. But I think it really fits the message of this foundation of abundance and where it comes from. And you may have a similar story with your upbringing, wherever you were from, maybe the same story. That's something to look at when you look at money and abundance. Were there things in your childhood, how you grew up and how your parents handled things, that you bring on into adult life? So it's a very, very, it's very good deep work to work in that. Some of it's a little shadow work too, I will tell you. But it's really good work to do, because it really helps us break through our own limitations. So we have a request. We want to get clear. So we want to go inward. And this, of course, we get back to spiritual practice, meditation and prayer, having a prayer partner. One of the best things that I've done when I really want to strike out on something and do something different, or whatever it may be, is to have a visioning process. And I know that Creative Living Fellowship has had many of these, and many of the centers that I've been to have been really big in going into visioning. So this is really a great way to really get clear about exactly what you want to provide and to manifest in your life. And one of the more important things to do also is to look at, what is the feeling that I want whenever I'm wanting something like this. And it may be maybe you want a new car, a new vehicle, and instead of saying, I want this particular car, you could say, what is the feeling behind it? Maybe you have an older car that doesn't have an airbag. I don't know. I used to have one of those, by the way, and in my unlimited days. And so maybe your car doesn't have an airbag in it or whatever, and you want a car that's safer. You want a car that you can also depend on. So what are those feelings? So when you're envisioning and meditation about it, what are those feelings? I want a peace of mind. I want to be assured that if I want to go to the beach in California, that me and the car will make it. So it's really about the feeling behind it. I'm sure you've had many maybe classes at CLF and talk about the mental equivalent, the law of mental equivalent. It's basically, here's a description of it. The law of mental equivalence means that everything that is consciously and subjectively embodied into our thinking tends to radiate an atmosphere, a vibration, a current of thought, an inward acceptance which automatically attracts to itself that which is like itself. So as the mind flows, so does abundance. And so we look at these mental equivalents of the feelings we want behind what we want to create. Again, to use an example of a vehicle, that you want the vehicle to be safer, more dependable. And we look at those feelings. What is the mental equivalent of that? You want a car that's maybe newer than you have. Maybe it's a recertified car that has all been checked over and has a new warranty to it. So it's really the feeling that you want as far as the things that you want to manifest in your life. Ernest Holmes wrote on occasion about what he called the spiritual bank account. I think it's from the Living Science of Mind book. Really great book. By the way, if someone comes to you kind of new to science of mind, and they say, hey, maybe I ought to buy the textbook, I may ought to learn, you may want to switch them or point them over to Living the Science of Mind. It seems a little bit easier for a newcomer to read and really to understand. So that was way back when that was suggested to me, and I think it really worked. I was able to understand some of the concepts, and then got into more and more of the spiritual work when I got the textbook. But in the Living the Science of Mind, Ernest Holmes talked about the spiritual bank account, and it's a bank account that God makes the initial deposit, and then you can make deposits by meditating, going within, taking a nature walk to center yourself, visioning. This helps build your spiritual bank account, and it ends up to being a nice storehouse for things that we want to create and manifest in our worlds. One of the things we do as humans is we can deny our own good. We can stop and block our own good. Ernest Holmes wrote that, ask us to, matter of fact, he probably demanded, stop denying the nature of the universe. The universe is a plane of giving. The universe is a plane of giving. So we have in our life, everywhere, at each and every moment, we live in this state of abundance. Supply is always here waiting for us. Again, nature awaits our comprehension of her. And then it is our choice to put into that law the things that we want to manifest. Our choice is very simple. We can consciously manifest our good, or we can unconsciously manifest limitation. That is so important. I'm going to repeat it again. We can consciously manifest our good, or we can unconsciously manifest limitation. In his book, The New Design for Living, Ernest Holmes writes on page 88, we can experience life as something spacious and luxurious, or as something cramped and confined. The materials we use are the same. What counts is the way that we use them. What counts is the way that we use them. So most of our thinking, as you may know, is very unconscious, and it's really keeping track of our own thoughts during the day and things that we want to manifest and things, again, that we build this foundation of abundance in. And I would suggest to you that you may want to look at places where you may be going against yourself, limiting thoughts, limiting ideas, and how other people can affect your progress and what you want to create in your life and manifest. So we can be our own worst enemy, I think. Congratulations, we're human, there we are. And we can be our own enemy, I think. But if we can build that good foundation of abundance, starting with spirit, the divine first cause, then we are well on our way to getting what we like and experiencing abundance in all aspects of our life, whether it be the bank account and relationships, success at work, all of this. I recently saw a minister, and she said something that was interesting. She said, poverty is a failure to value who you are. Poverty is a failure to value who you are. And at first, when I first heard him, I'm like, oh yeah, okay, I get that. And then later on, I started thinking about it, and I don't necessarily agree with all of that, because I think for some people, whatever backgrounds they had, or their start that they had, or the non-start that they had, and certain laws that were different, and we're wedged against them, that people may be in a place where, you know what, they may believe in themselves, but they're still in this place where they maybe see a lot of limitation. So I actually changed that around. I changed the word poverty, took that out, and put in limitation. So let's read this again. And I think it'll read a little bit differently for you. Limitation is the failure to value who you are. Limitation is the failure to value who you are. Now that I can believe. So whenever we have a limiting thought, it is our failure of our mental capacity to stay in that foundation of abundance and good, and stay in that feeling of spirit, because spirit and the divine nature is all around us. It always has been and always will be. All right. You know, before we go to prayer, I just want to talk about, there's a reading that I found from another Science of Mind magazine. This is from January 1928. As you can see, I like to go back and look at the old Science of Mind magazines. This is a reading by Ernest Holmes, and it's called Greetings to the Dawn. And I like the words here because it seems to reflect our feelings of abundance and this foundation of abundance. And I see this as us rising to greet the dawn of our own abundance and our own good. So again, this is by Ernest Holmes from January 1928 in the Science of Mind magazine. My thought goes forth to meet the dawn. It goes forth to greet the face of him who dwells in the midst of eternity. It is not afraid, but travels afar in company with unseen forces of life, an unnumbered host of the indivisible. I stand in the center of this universe and behold him who inhabits the endless ages. Mighty thoughts rush out to greet thee, and thy presence encompasses all the desired properties, for it's intended for us all. Ernest Holmes, Greetings to the Dawn. This time, if you feel comfortable wherever you're at, wherever you're sitting or standing, if you'd like, let's close our eyes as we just go into the prayer. We'll have a few moments of silence and we'll go into prayer. Let's do that now. As you take a deep breath, just let it out slowly. What a divine blessing it is to be here on this Sunday morning, right here, right now, in the midst of this divine spirit, first cause. Knowing and affirming that everything around me right now, this table, the microphone, the computer, all of this is God. And knowing and affirming that wherever the person viewing this right now and hearing the sound of my voice, that all around them and through them is this one divine spirit, this perfect cause, first cause, logos, God itself. For God is in each and everything that closes our breath. It's in the animals, our pets, and all kinds of animals, and all the flora and fauna of the entire earth itself and universe itself. All this is this divine God light, first and foremost, first cause. And I know and affirm that I, Reverend Glenn, are of this one perfect spirit, that working through me, as me, always has been and always will be, is this divine spirit, this perfect God, the very heart of who I am. So I know and affirm that I touch into this divine whisper of God at each and every moment, each and every step. And I know and affirm that this same divine spirit is at the very heart of every person watching in this and listening to my voice right now, that working through them, as them, always has been, always will be, is this one divine spirit that simply says, yes, You are my beloved. And in this divine knowing, I now speak the truth for all of us right now, that we are divine creatures. We are the sons and daughters of God. As we go forth, we have unlimited power to create a perfect world for us and for all others, and for the entire universe itself. I know that whatever we may feel like we want more of in our life, whether it be money or relationships or anything else, I know and affirm that as we go throughout this day and throughout this week, that we pour this perfect, solid, strong foundation and divine spirit. We're going into visioning and manifesting and prayer work as we pour this solid footer for all things that we want to attract and manifest in our lives. That we go inward, listen to that inner whisper of God that simply says yes, yes, yes to all of our desires. I know that we are absolutely unlimited, and each and every one of us now comprehends this divine nature that is always welcoming to us, always, 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 saying yes, 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 and yes again. And what a privilege it is to know that whenever we get clear with our thoughts of what we want to manifest from this foundation of abundance, that we put these thoughts go into the law itself. And the law knows nothing except to let it be as has been said and has been felt. So it goes into this law. I give great thanks for this law, knowing and affirming that as this prayer has been spoken, that it is true and perfect for each and every person here now. So with that, I now release this prayer in the universal law, knowing it is good. It is very, very good. Knowing and affirming that we are abundant. We are unlimited. And this prayer is now, as has been spoken here, is done. It is absolutely done. In the name of God. So what a blessing that I release this prayer now in universal law, knowing that it is done. It is so because I have said it here and now. And for this I give gracious thanks, peace, and joy as we affirm together and say together, and so it is.
It is.